Heidi's crossflow is going to begin to look even better. Just check out the bling.
Even my persuader didn't work.
I think maybe I was supposed to fit the front cover before the sump.
I found some plastic debris in amongst the valve springs. My nearly new fuel pump was cracked. This stud, which I forgot to get zinc plated, so I had to take a couple of steps back.
Accidentally chipped it, which is really annoying, is actually cracked. I've got a slight problem. I can't get the rear crank seal out. Let's see if I have a bit better luck with this. And that is what I didn't want to happen. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me back around the garage messing about with my old banger Ford Escorts. Just finished shooting a video on Esther, my Mk2 Escort, who is now going to be out of action for a little while. Definitely go and check that video out if you haven't already. But today I want to turn my attention back to my latest project, Heidi, the hearing aid beige Mk2 Escort, or more specifically, her 1300 crossflow engine that I've been slowly but surely getting ready to fit into Heidi's bay. And in this video, Heidi's crossflow is going to begin to look even better because this morning I went to pick up the hardware from the zinc platers. And here is said hardware sitting on my other Mk2 Escort, who makes a great table. But yeah, just check out the bling. Awesome. Now also on this table I've got a full gasket kit for a crossflow. To be fair, this is more of a budget kit. Back in the day when I used to mess around with crossflows, I used to not bother using cork sump gaskets and not bother using cork rocker cover gaskets. I would use more uprated gaskets. The rocker cover gasket would be like rubber and the sump gasket would be made out of some other material but not cork. But I'm going to go with this budget gasket kit for this engine and hopefully it'll be all right. I've got my trusty Haynes manual ready to tell me the torque settings for all the bolts on the engine. Over here I've got the sump, which I've given a decent clean out today. I've really cleaned up this gasket face nicely as well. There was actually loads of sludge in the bottom of this, which is to be expected. I mean, it's a 50-year-old sump after all. I've actually already dug out the bolts and washers that I need for the sump. Some of the original washers didn't survive. There's some pieces in here, like this piece for instance, so I've just dug out some generic washers to make up the difference. And over here I've got one of many pieces that I painted up recently at home in my shed, looking awesome. A little bit dusty, but yeah, just check out the shine on that. Not bad for a spray can, eh? All the rest of the painted up bits are in this box because I've actually got to get out of here in about an hour, so I'm going to be continuing this video next time I come around here, which is fine. So yeah, I'll leave the other bits wrapped up for now. But yeah, because I'm going to start with the sump, it makes sense to turn the engine upside down, fit the sump, you know, with a little bit of sealer, leave the bolts loose and leave the engine upside down for a couple of days, and then I can come back around here in a couple of days to continue. So that's why, even though I don't have a lot of time today, I want to start putting the engine together today. Now I have already been cleaning up some of these bits. I didn't perfectly mask this out, so I've just been sanding all the silver paint off of there. I had left the old gasket or seal on this bit, so I pulled that off and given that face a decent clean. And I've also been squirting some of the Kent Europe Acrosol into all the thread holes just to get any dust out. It's a little bit of dirt there, and the reason I use the Acrosol is because, you know, I painted this block myself and I know that the Acrosol won't attack the paint, whereas the brake cleaner may have done. I don't know, but yeah, got all the dust out of the threads, and yeah, I'm ready to start actually bolting some bits to this engine. So you know the drill if you've been watching my videos. Let's cue some music and crack on with it.
Once I'd removed the masking, I turned the lump upside down and then I scraped off the old sump gasket before cleaning the gasket face with some Kent Europe brake cleaner and a scotch, and then I finished up with a light sand. I wanted to give the pickup pipe a thorough clean but failed to remove it. Even my persuader didn't work, so I just cleaned it while it was in situ. I grabbed the Kent Silly gasket and applied a very thin bead around the gasket face. As you can see, the crossflow sump gasket is in 4 pieces. I placed the flat cork pieces into position on the engine first. This rubber piece can wait until we fit the front cover, and both of the rubber pieces have little square cutouts where they interlock with the cork gasket. I added a bit more sealer in those corners, fitted the larger of the 2 rubber pieces to the rear of the engine, added another bead of sealer, then I slid on the sump. Then I put the Kent nut lock on each of the bolts and just threaded them in hand tight.
I think maybe I was supposed to fit the front cover before the sump, but I don't think it'll matter.
A couple of days later, I was back around the garage to install the front cover, so I cleaned up the gasket faces on the front of the engine and started chucking more gasket sealant about, making sure it wasn't too thick here because that's very close to a small water port on the water pump. With the gasket positioned on the engine, I then added the other rubber piece of the sump gasket to the front cover. Then after some more sealant, I installed the front cover onto the engine, making sure that the pieces of the sump gasket were interlocked together correctly. At this point, I really regretted fitting the sump first, but once I was happy, I then screwed in all the remaining bolts from the sump and the front cover, and once I was happy that the cover was straight, I added some more sealer, torqued up all the bolts to 8 foot-pounds, and then cleaned up any excess sealer. Next to go in was the front crank seal, which I tapped home nice and evenly with 2 hammers. And then it was time to install the freshly zinc plated bottom pulley. With the engine back up the right way, I set about installing the water pump, which is held on with 3 bolts, one of which also holds the front cover on. I don't like this gap between these 2 parts, but I decided to use a bigger washer on the bolt and just move on. Once the water pump was torqued up, I moved on to the engine mounts. Then I installed the block breather, but I couldn't find its bolt. When I pulled the masking off of the top of the engine, I found some plastic debris in amongst the valve springs. I removed all the bits of plastic that I could find, and then I cleaned up the rocker cover gasket face. When installing the new rocker cover gasket, I made sure that these little tabs were locked into place, and then it was time to fit the rocker cover to the engine, using the freshly zinc plated screws of course. In went the oil cap, and just look how cool that rocker cover looks. I gave the thermostat housing a quick polish. I was actually going to paint it, but I changed my mind. I installed the housing without a thermostat to aid flushing the engine later on. And then I discovered that my nearly new fuel pump was cracked, but I decided to install it anyway because it'll probably be alright for the initial startup. Next, I greased up the distributor and fitted that. And then I uncovered and cleaned up the oil pump and then installed my fresh, genuine Ford oil filter, which are available from marcushayesuk.com. Next to go in were the spark plugs, and then I fitted the HT leads, not worrying about the firing order at this stage. The carb and inlet manifold were filthy, so I managed to find not 1 but 2 different types of degreaser, and I thought I'd try them out. I used both degreasers and a stiff brush to loosen any dirt, and then I attacked the parts with the Kent brake cleaner. And just look at the results. Before I could fit them, I needed to clean up the gasket face, which was a lot easier with the dizzy cap and the breather out of the way, and then I installed this stud, which I forgot to get zinc plated, and slid on the new gasket. Once the carb and inlet were fitted, I refitted the dizzy cap and then realised I didn't have enough room to refit the breather. So I had to take a couple of steps back before I could then start taking steps forward again. But at this point, it was actually starting to look like an engine. I screwed in the freshly zinc plated exhaust studs, and then it was time to chuck the original air filter box on top of the carb. Then a couple of days later, I installed these couple of bits, and then it was time to stand back and check out Heidi's engine, now looking almost complete. It's certainly looking a bit better than it did when I first got it.
Alright, so I've actually been round here 4 separate days putting Heidi's engine together, just chipping away at it, an hour here and an hour there, and yeah, it's pretty cool to see it almost ready to go in the bay. There's definitely a few bits that I've sort of identified that I need to do, a couple of bits that I know I need to get hold of, and yeah, quite a few things to mention in terms of how I went about this. First of all, it was definitely a mistake fitting the sump before I fitted this front cover, and the reason I fitted the sump first was because when I started this video I knew I didn't have enough time to do the sump and the front cover, and I wanted to do the sump because, as I explained earlier in this video, I wanted to, you know, do the bolts up, you know, just nip them up and yeah, come back round another day once the sealer had had a chance to go off. But yeah, fitting the front cover after the sump's already fitted was a bit of a nightmare, you know, making sure that this cork gasket was above or beneath the rubber bit that goes round here. I can't remember which way round it goes. I also didn't put any sealer between the sump and the cork gasket. Now, really and truly, in an ideal world, none of the gaskets should require any sealer, but I decided to put sealer on all of them. But I have been sort of picking off some of the excess just to make it look a bit tidy, and you know, I've made sure that you know, it all would have been squeezed outwards. I'm pretty sure that none of the sealer will end up in where the oil's supposed to be. With regards to this front cover, I accidentally chipped it, which is really annoying, but realistically, when this is in the bay, you're not going to see that. It's just going to look really cool to have a really shiny black cover, and I think it contrasts well against the block, along with all the other gloss black parts. Actually really like the colour scheme of this engine. I really wasn't sure about doing the head black and the block silver, but I actually think it looks really cool. Now, there's definitely at least a few things that I still need for this engine. One of them being the alternator bracket that goes here. And unfortunately, this bit here where the thread is for one of the bolts is actually cracked. I hope that's not going to cause me an issue with oil leaking out of it. I doubt it, to be honest. And as long as I don't over tighten that bolt, I'm pretty sure I'll be okay. But the bracket that actually came on this engine is this one, which is to suit a dynamo and not an alternator. And I definitely want to fit an alternator to this engine instead of a dynamo. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I need to get the correct bracket, because this, I don't think will fit an alternator. I'm pretty sure the gap between these 2 points is too wide. But you know what, I'll get this zinc plated, and maybe I can throw it on eBay for someone who has still got a dynamo fitted to their engine, who wants to add some bling to their engine. I'm also actually not sure if this adjuster bit is going to be suitable for an alternator. I'm pretty sure the alternator ones are curved. So yeah, again, I may need the correct one of these as well. I'll put this in the bag for the next batch for the zinc platers. Also in there is the engine to bell housing bolts, but there is a couple that I haven't got, and it's these two that go here. They're a different thread than the others. The others go through these bits into the bell housing threaded, but yeah, these two go through the bell housing into the head. So yeah, I need to get those two bolts. And because this is a crossflow engine, all the threads are imperial, so I can't even go to Toolstation and just grab some generic metric bolts, unfortunately. There's definitely a few more bits I'm going to be adding to the zinc plating pile. This piece here, I actually got this one done before, but yeah, forgot about this one, so I'm going to remove that and get that zinc plated. There might be some other bits on here that I may end up getting zinc plated. I don't know how mad I'm going to go. Maybe I could get all this linkage done as well. There's a little clamp there which I think is for the choke cable. May as well get that done. That's really easy to remove. So yeah, some of the little bits on the carb I might end up throwing in with the zinc plating batch. I'm not going to go absolutely crazy, because you know, if I'm going to do that, I might as well rebuild the whole carb. But while we're on the subject of the carb, this air filter box is just leaning on there. If I take the lid off, I still need the bolts to hold this down to this, but that shouldn't be an issue. But I'm not actually sure how this is supposed to attach to the carb. Yeah, those holes, I don't know if the bolt's supposed to go all the way through them and then into a bracket that attaches to the carb. I'm really not sure. But that is obviously not right. That doesn't just sit like that. So if any of you guys have got any idea how this air filter box is supposed to attach to the carb, please do let me know. Drop me an email. My email address is in the description. If you've got any pictures of your car that's got, you know, a stock carb and air filter set up, that would be awesome. Also on this air filter box, this end bit appears to be metal and it's a bit rusty, so I'm going to give that a paint. I have tried quickly just to pull this out, and I'm not sure if that's bonded in there or what, so I may just give that a quick sand whilst it's still attached to the plastic bit, and yeah, just give that a quick spray can black at some point. But yeah, now the air filter's off, you can see the carb a bit better, and yeah, as I say, I might get some of these external bits zinc plated, just seeing as I've already got a batch to do. And yeah, there's a better look at that clamp, which I'm pretty sure is for the choke cable. Now, annoyingly, this brand new looking fuel pump was actually cracked, as you would have seen in the clips. Yeah, it's actually cracked down there. So I'm going to have to get another one of them, even though that is virtually brand new. But thankfully, they're only about, I think, 30 quid or something, so not too bad. And for some reason, I couldn't find the bolt that holds this breather box to the block. I definitely had it when I removed this from the engine. And again, it's not a generic metric bolt, it's an imperial bolt. So yeah, need to source one of them from somewhere. But yeah, other than that, these leads don't really go with the colour scheme of the engine. Probably going to end up changing them, and the dizzy cap and the rotor arm and the points and whatnot. Those parts aren't expensive at all. Also need to get a better exhaust manifold. The one that came with the engine is over here. Pretty rusty. You can get these quite cheaply on eBay, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get a better one, and then maybe I'll send it to the guys at Microblast Services in Windsor to get their Surcoat, I think it's called, which is really good coating for hot parts like exhaust manifolds. So yeah, there it is, Heidi's engine looking way more complete. I'm absolutely loving how it's coming together. Can't wait to get it into Heidi's bay. Just imagine how good it's going to look when it's sitting in there. I think what I'm going to do now is remove some of these parts that I want to get zinc plated, and then I'm going to change how this engine is mounted to this stand. I'm going to remove this engine mount here and attach this bracket, so then I can mount it onto the stand from the side of the engine rather than the back of the engine, and then I'll be able to get to the rear crank seal and change that. I don't think I'm going to bother changing the gasket on this rear cover though. Now, annoyingly, I can't get this bit off unless I'm willing to take the whole shaft out, which involves removing a butterfly, not this one, but the one further down there. And yeah, I don't want to go that far without having to rebuild this whole carb. So that is going to have to stay looking rusty, even though that's probably one of the more obvious bits poking out the side of the carb. But yeah, it is what it is. I've got a slight problem. So with the engine mounted on the stand this way, I can access the back of the engine. However, I can't get the rear crank seal out without removing this rear cover. So that's another job that I should have done before I fit the sump. Here is the brand new rear seal. And yeah, I'm guessing it goes in from the back of that cover, not in this way, like Z-Tex and stuff. So that's a shame. I'm not going to bother taking this cover off because that's going to disturb what I've done on the sump gasket. I'm just going to send it and just hope that that seal in there is okay. Fingers crossed. Now, I do seem to have a few bolts and that left from what I think was all engine stuff. Now, a couple of these will probably be for the alternator bracket, probably these big ones. Actually, there's only one of them. So that definitely fits in there, it seems. Although I'm a bit wary, maybe that's the wrong bolt and that's why that cracked. That actually does seem to go in there quite easy. That's the bolt for there, and yeah, this thread definitely is smaller than that. No, that's too small. These are all definitely the same size. They're the only ones I've got left. Now, this engine actually came with this bracket attached to the sump, which I threw in with my zinc plating bits. That basically attaches something like that. And someone in the comments of one of the videos before said the fact that the sump has this bracket attached to it means that this engine, or at least this sump, came off of an automatic Mk2 Escort, because this engine came out of a Mk1, of course. Now, I remembered wrongly that David Coogan, who used to own that Mk1, done a manual swap on it. But yeah, I remembered that wrongly. What he in fact did was replaced the manual gearbox because the casing was cracked. So he fitted the manual gearbox that I got with this engine. So I wasn't going to bother fitting this back to the sump because, you know, as I say, I was told this is for an automatic gearbox, but I just lined this up against the manual gearbox, and these holes in this bracket are the same distance apart as these two. So I'm wondering if, in fact, this bracket is literally just so that you can bolt the sump to the bottom of the gearbox. So I may as well throw this onto the sump, and then we'll see if it actually does line up when I go to attach the gearbox to the engine. And there you go. Bit of bling that no one else is going to see. Couple of the outstanding bolts now used up. Oh, I've also dug out the flywheel bolts, which I wasn't meant to actually get re-zinc plated, but there you are. Not even sure if you're supposed to reuse these, but I am going to. And the flywheel is actually something that loads of you have been in touch to give me some advice on. All right, so over here I've got the flywheel and the clutch cover that came off of Heidi's crossflow lump, and these were skimmed by Carlo at AR Valley and Sons Precision Engineers. As you can see, the flywheel was only skimmed out to as far as these dowels, and that was because Carlo couldn't get the dowels out of the flywheel. Now, loads of you have been in touch to say that that isn't how you're supposed to skim a flywheel, and you're absolutely right, and Carlo did even say it himself, but, you know, we couldn't get the dowels out of the flywheel. And I kind of thought that it wouldn't matter that much, you know, it's just going to be the same as having your clutch worn down by 30 thou, because this was skimmed by 20 thou and this was skimmed by 10 thou. And for a standard 1300 car, you know, considering the friction plate for the clutch looks absolutely brand new, I didn't think it'd be a massive deal. And yeah, I just wanted the gouges taken out of the flywheel because ultimately the flywheel was junk anyway when I gave it to Carlo. But both me and Carlo understand that this isn't right, and I think I'm going to have a go at trying to get these dowels out, and then I can take it back to Carlo and get it skimmed all the way across. Now, I have already tried to get the dowels out. I've been trying to grab hold of them with my best pair of mole grips. You can see how mullered the dowel is there. You know, I've been trying to grip them with the mole grips and hit them with a hammer, and so far I haven't had any luck. I have given them a bit of a soak with this Kent Europe 9-in-1 penetrant and lubricant, so maybe now I'll be able to get them out because that has been soaking for a few days. We'll just have to see. But even if I destroy these dowels, I can get them. So yeah, I really want to try and get them dowels out, then I can get the flywheel skimmed, you know, all the way, and then it's proper. However, my good friend Dale actually said to me that this is probably a 1600 crossflow flywheel. Now, I don't know if any of you guys can confirm or deny by just looking at it. I mean, I didn't know that 1600 and 1300 crossflows came with different flywheels, to be honest. But if this is a 1600 flywheel, then maybe I'll be better off getting a 1300 flywheel instead. Or maybe I could get an 1100 flywheel if they're even lighter. And yeah, maybe Heidi's engine will be a little bit more, you know, free revving. But, you know, I'm still not planning to modify her engine at all. But yeah, if I need to get another flywheel and the 1100 ones are lighter, then that's an option. So yeah, do let me know in the comments. First of all, are 1600 crossflow flywheels different from 1300 ones? And are you able to tell by looking at this flywheel that it is a 1600 one and not a 1300 one? And also, if you could let me know if 1100 crossflow flywheels are lighter, because if so, that'll be the one that I'll look out for. Now, it'll probably be easier to tell what flywheel this is if you knew the weight of it. Now, I've got these kitchen scales. The problem is they only go up to 5 kilos. Now, when I put this on, it's obviously heavier than 5 kilos. Let's see if I have a bit better luck with this by actually putting it in the vise. Now, my vise is very small. I do have a big one over here, but that doesn't work. So, yeah, let's see how I get on with this. Fingers crossed. Well, it's spinning, so that's promising. Definitely looks like there's a slight ring there of, you know, more orange material, so maybe it's moved out by that much. Nope. Right, I think I'm going to try and cut a slot in it and then just try and sort of hammer and chisel it out, but it won't be ideal because we're going at such an angle. It's just started raining. Dear oh dear. And that is what I didn't want to happen. Dear oh dear. Oh, that worked. Yes. And that one snapped off as well. All right, so we've got 2 that snapped off flush and 1 that I was able to get out. So I suppose now the answer is to try and drill these out, no? Part of me is thinking I should just leave this to Carlo. Now I've got it to this stage, he can probably drill them out really accurately, but I'm wondering if I was to just drill into these, you never know, they might just sort of loosen up and come out. The other option is I could tap them and then put a bolt on there, and then maybe I'll be able to get more leverage on it. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should leave it alone. All right, so I think the sensible option is to leave it alone. I'm going to take a quick video of it and send it to Carlo and see what he reckons, rather than diving into trying to sort it out myself now and potentially ruining it completely. So to be continued on the flywheel. Now what I'm thinking is, if this is a 1600 flywheel and I do decide to get a different flywheel, at least if I can get this sorted and get it skimmed properly, I'll be able to put this on eBay as a freshly skimmed 1600 crossflow flywheel. But yeah, we'll have to see what Carlo says. Now my beautiful girlfriend Kat has just come round to the garage to see what I'm up to. And what I was planning to do next on Heidi, I can't do on my own. So I was going to get her to help me with that. But seeing as the weather isn't playing ball, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that today. So we'll have one more quick look at Heidi's engine, which is really coming together now. And with that, I'm going to end this video here. Massive thanks, as always, to everyone who's tuned in. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website for merchandise and car parts. Massive thanks, as always, to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, from me and my beautiful girlfriend Kat, thanks for watching.